Powerful and aggressive off-road desert runner builds need a front coilover system that can resist fade and provide instant response and feedback in even the most brutal environments during high-speed runs. The last word in off-road performance are coilovers, and this set of 2.5 coilovers from Fox come with a powerful remote reservoir that increase total oil capacity of these powerful coilovers and promote more efficient and effective cooling to reduce suspension fade during even the most intense and aggressive off-road driving applications. To get complete access to the front suspension, remove the front wheels. Since we are here, we also removed the axle nut dust cover from the hub, then unbolted the axle. Up at the knuckle, remove the brake and vacuum lines that are attached to the knuckle and strut tower to provide us the slack we need to move away the stock components. Also remove the vacuum line from the back of the knuckle by the axle. Move on down to the lower control arm and remove the sway bar from the end link. Now we can go to the upper control arm nut on the top of the knuckle and remove it to the last threads of the shaft. Do not completely unthread it just yet. Onto the tie rod end, the nut can be removed, then take a hammer to break loose the tie rod and take it out of the knuckle. To relieve tension on the upper control arms, slightly loosen them at the strut tower connections. Now we can move on to the top of the strut and remove the 3 nuts that hold the coilover to the shock tower, as well as remove the UCA nut from the knuckle. On the underside of the lower control arm, remove the 2 lower connections to the coilover mount, then the coilover can be lifted out of the truck. To clean up the look on our F150, we did a little bit of painting while we had the coilover out. Then we inserted the Fox 2.5 unit into the strut tower and used the supplied hardware to loosely bolt it in for now. If your lower pins are slightly misaligned, thread in the new bolt from the top and turn the pins as needed. Then thread in the bolt from the bottom for proper installation. If you have a 2009 to 2013 F150, the lower pin installation is different and your install will differ just slightly. Bring up the knuckle and attach it to the upper control arm. Just loosely thread on the nut for the time being. Working back up top, tighten down the 3 upper strut bolts to the coilover. We then worked on attaching the vacuum lines and brake line brackets back to their locations before tightening the lower control arm bolts. With the axle back in the knuckle, tighten the axle nut, but be careful not to over tighten and break the axle. Then the sway bar can be reattached to the end link and control arms tighten down to the strut tower and the knuckle. We loosen back up the frontmost strut tower bolt and attach the reservoir bracket. Then the reservoir itself can be attached to the bracket with the 2 worm clamps. Place the tie rod back into the knuckle and tighten down the nut. Be sure to get a professional alignment after the install as well. To top off the new leveled stance, our new wheels and tires went on to finish this installation.
Moving around here, we've got the Fox 2.5s. You guys will see some good video of us beating up on those things. Those things are solid. I can't think of a suspension I'd rather have on this. And yes, it's kind of expensive, but there's just no way it's going to let us down. And I think we've proved that here in the last 500 miles of this trip, or whatever we've got on these trucks so far.
Yeah, with a vehicle that has this much weight on it, on roads that are washboarded or rutted and full of mud and snow, you really don't want to be playing around on factory suspension. If you're coming back with more weight than when you started, you especially don't want to be dragging parts on the ground and getting your tires stuffed up where they're not going to fit.
And when you've got big ruts out here like this and they're filled with water, you don't know what's under them, you know? So 10, 15 miles an hour might not seem like much. You hit a good sized boulder in there and you can do some damage.
There's certainly a lot to be said for having a smoother ride. Obviously it's easier on you as a driver and your passengers, but it's a lot easier on the rest of the equipment for the truck too when everything's not rattling apart underneath you.
And you can see that in some of our footage. You know, we start out at 10 miles an hour, 15, 20 miles an hour, and these roads are just beating us up. I mean, the doors are rattling on the trucks. We get up to 50, 60, 70 miles an hour and it's just smooth as can be. 30 miles an hour, you can see how bumpy it is. And with these shocks, it's going to get better as you increase speed. We're at about 55 now, and it's a lot smoother. We've got about 500 miles on this trip, and we're loving this thing so far. We've run 2.0s, Foxes in the past. We've run Icon 2.5s. We've run these shocks in different configurations. We've had these on our BDS truck in a 4-inch lift. We've had them on a zone lift with a spacer kit. This is just in a leveling. They're probably set at about 1.5 inches worth of leveling, and they are just soaking up everything this road can give to them. We've got a bunch of weight on the rears. We've got 2.5 inch width of resi on the rear, 800-pound four-wheeler in there, the deck system, and it just doesn't care. They just love it.
Not to mention those 2.5 shocks are also running along with a 2-inch Halo Lifts rear block and a 1.5-inch Adaleaf kit from Ready Lift. So they're about at their max extended height as far as what Fox rates them for, and they're still doing just fine, especially with all that weight on them. Well, the Fox 2.5s have progressive valving versus digressive on the Icons, and the digressive is better technically for really hard, violent impacts. Progressive has a little bit softer ride, especially out here on these fairly well-maintained forest roads. It's going to feel a little bit more comfortable.
And after running some of the Icons in the past and the Foxes, I know we get some guys that put them on, they think they're harsh at first. Go out and use them. The more you use these, the better they ride. It seems like every time we go off-road, we get back on the highway, and they're smoother than they were before. Here's a little straightaway. Let's see if we can get it up to 70. That's 70, and it was smooth as could be. If this is something that you're going to do a couple times a year, I would stay away from the 2.0s. They ride great, and they're great on the street. They're not adjustable so much in height, and we have had people that get aggressive with them bend the bottom of them. You know, if you need to do it one time to get down a trail, you'll be fine. But if you're actually going to push your truck, and this is part of a lifestyle that you live, I would go with a 2.5. We had them on one of our 15 trucks, and we were out just even on some, you know, washboarded roads. I think we said we were somewhere in the 25-mile-an-hour range is about all we felt comfortable doing with those, as opposed to these. On our BDS truck, we had this same setup on the 4-inch lift, and it was nothing to do 75 miles an hour down a road, and you know, kind of come into something too fast, hit it, and just brace for impact, and the Fox 2.5s just soaked it up. And Jason and I did that plenty of times yesterday. Got a couple of big rocks. Oh, there's a tree. That's going to hit our... There's a big one.
For everything F150, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also subscribe for all of our latest YouTube content.